He is Christopher Mad Dog Russo. How are you, Christopher?
Good afternoon, Richard. How are you today, pal? Okay?
Well, how do you take this news of Dolan?
I was surprised. It surprised me. Maybe the Carmelo thing with the buyout, maybe Porzingis scared the hell out of Dolan. Who knows? They did allow Phil to work through the draft. To let him go 4 days before free, maybe that has something to do with it. But the Knicks don't have any money anyway. No free agents coming here anyway. So I don't know why the urgency now. Again, maybe Anthony. He's always had a soft spot, Dolan, for Anthony. That might have a little something to do with it. Maybe all the background noise got a little something to do with it. Maybe the Knicks were alarmed that the Porzingis thing was a possibility. But most Knicks fans, I shouldn't say most, all Knicks fans, at least in this quarter, Rich, are rejoicing. They look at Jackson as a failed experiment. Despite Porzingis, maybe the kid they get in the draft from France is going to be good, but the Knicks fan right now doesn't worry about that. Phil was aloof. Phil, was, a lot of people thought he was kind of sleeping on a job, whether he was sleeping in subways or at NFL draft things, as we all heard about him nodding off. The record obviously speaks for itself. He didn't have that consistent plan. He tried last year with Rose and Noah. That didn't work out. Noah's a disastrous contract. Rose will be out of there too. So I think most Knicks fans are rejoicing. They don't like Dolan. They hate him too, but I think they realize the end was near. But I think people are surprised. I'm surprised because the last time we heard from Dolan in the early spring, he said he was committed to the 5 years for Jackson, and he jettisons him out of there after 3. So I think a lot of people in New York are surprised today.
I think, Chris, this is nothing but a Porzingis rescue project that basically is a realization of the special kid that Phil had dropped into his lap and was wise enough to draft. Let's give him credit on that front.
Give him credit for that.
But if he is going to go in a free agency period with the idea of trading him for somebody or trying to get rid of Carmelo right at the outset of the free agency period by asking Dolan to pony up another $60 million into the kitty to pay him off, I think that had to be it. That had to be it.
I think you're probably right on that. I think that combo, they should never re-sign Carmelo anyway, and then they made it worse for the no trade. But, the Knicks are not ready to win when they re-signed him a couple of years ago. Carmelo wants to stay in New York. He's more interested in, being in the Big Apple with all those little things he does, more so than he is on winning a championship. Unless you hand him a championship and put him on the Cavaliers and pay him $30 million a year, he's not going. So he's not interested in doing that. He wants to stay here. The Knicks gave him that big Jackson gave him that big contract, which at the time, this is not a second guess, first guess, I said it was stupid. And, that's one of them, and I think you're right. I think the Porzingis thing is a factor. I think maybe they were a little nervous. They trade him. He is the real deal. As you said, Rich, you're right on. He is the future of the franchise. The fans love him. If the Celtics were going to give him 3,000 pieces, all right, that's one thing. They weren't going to go that far.
Right.
But I think the Knicks. I think Dolan got nervous that the Knicks were not in good hands, and he was a little nervous of what Jackson could do. With the way he was reacting. So he said, "I'll get him the heck out of here. Give him $25 million to leave. I'll let Steve Mills run it for a while, and we'll decide what we'll do with the basketball official down the road." Hornacek now, obviously, I don't know if this is good or bad for him. It's bad that Jackson, the guy who hired him, is leaving.
Oh, it's history. He's got to be history, Chris.
Triangle offense if he doesn't want to play it.
Chris,
so there you go.
Here's Chris Mad Dog Russo here with me. This is what the Knicks should do. And I know that they're looking at the current general manager of the Toronto Raptors right now, according to the Daily News, that Masai Ujiri, I believe I'm pronouncing his name correctly.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
Because they're looking at him, although he's under contract, they'd have to flip something to the Raptors to go get him or need permission to go get him. Short of that, you got the guy who's been the architect of the Cavs, and I know it's easy to have LeBron James trying to build around him. But go get the general manager, David Griffin, who just got fired in Cleveland,
That's a good point.
and go find the next Brad Stevens, And
that I agree with you on. Go get yourself a college coach who's young and into it.
Yes.
And ready to go. I like Hornacek. He's been dealing with a tough deck, but I'm not gonna worry about Hornacek. If you go get I don't know who that coach would be. In college, Stevens was perfect. What a hire by Ainge. He's a great coach. That's not a bad idea either. No, the Knicks are not ready to win right now, so I don't think you have to do it this minute. But that's not a bad point.
I mean,
you want to give Hornacek a year to see what he can do when he doesn't have Jackson looking over his shoulder. I guess you could do it that way as well. But you're right, Rich. You got the right idea, and you're a big Knicks fan. I know that from way back. You got the right idea. Maybe Jackson would have left you a good player here with the French kid. Maybe he's going to be a good player.
Maybe so. Although the Frederick Weiss memory, the French pastry from that just
what a disaster
it still
that
sticks.
was.
It still sticks in my craw. The French pastry, as Frederick Weiss was known as. But we shouldn't paint all people from France with the same brush.
And plus the fact Porzingis, the European player they drafted 2 years ago, turned out to be very good. So,
incredible.
Kind of washed that off with Weiss. But you're right. You got to hope this kid's a good player.
So,
I mean, who knows? You have no idea.
So Carmelo stays, Porzingis stays, and then you try and reshape this best you can. Why does it work for the Rangers under Dolan and it doesn't for the Knicks? Can you tell me that?
Well, remember, it took the Rangers 7 years under Sather before they finally put something together now. The Rangers didn't make the playoffs for a long time. And then, they tried to do the highfalutin free agent, then they tried the other way. They really had trouble finding that right mix, and then, they landed and got the right players, and they built the team around Lundqvist. They got good defensemen, and away you go. And the Rangers have been very consistent. They haven't won the whole thing, but they have been to a cup final. They've been to a couple of conference finals. They've run the team right, and Dolan has stayed out of it. And, he gave Sather a long leash. But Sather was not a mess off the ice, I mean, Jackson's been a mess. He's picking fights with Anthony. He's picking fights with Porzingis. He's been very cryptic with his tweets. He falls asleep at certain scenarios. The Knicks, much more attention, Rich, you know that better than anybody on the Knicks than it is on the Rangers.
Oh, sure.
More people pay attention to the Knicks in New York than the Rangers. The Rangers sort of operate in, by their lonesome. The Knicks, by contrast, are a franchise that everybody pays attention to. They're a big team in the NBA. The Rangers sort of are too, but it's hockey, so you're not as out there as you are with Phil. So if you make a mistake, you're out on a limb. That's got a little something to do with it too, compared to Sather, who was here for a long time before they won. But again, most Knicks fans, and I know you're one, and you're rejoicing. I think most Knicks fans, despite the fact that they don't like Dolan either, most Knicks fans seem to think that this is a positive development today.
Well,
most people think that.
I know you only got a couple minutes, but I mean, I'm not rejoicing. As I said at the top of the show, and Chris, it's sad, man. I mean, this is one of Red Holtzman's finest, and watching him win with Jordan and Shaq and Kobe was tough. While the Knicks were trying to bang their heads against the Jordan years and couldn't break through. And then watching him win with the Lakers, and then he finally comes back to the Knicks. And we all had that sense as Knicks fans, deep in our pit of our stomach, think this is not going to work out because it's Dolan and it's just the Knicks. And it's come true. The prophecy came like spot on true, and I am just bummed about it. It's just a bummer.
And you can't blame Dolan for giving him the 5 years. It was the right move.
He gave him a shot.
He was the guy out there that had a great track record. The first, I tell you, the Anthony signing was a big mistake. He doesn't like Anthony. He doesn't like the Anthony game. The ball sticks to Anthony. We all know that. And, Anthony doesn't make anybody around him better. He's a great closer, but doesn't make anybody around him better. I think Jackson realized that it's against his best thought to get him signed, but he did. And I think that was the beginning of the end. I can't kill him last year. Everybody in New York wanted him to make the DeRozan trade. Is not a bad trade. They don't have to make a big commitment to him. Noah's $72 million was stupid. He was shot. The Bulls knew it, and he grabbed them. Money is no object with the Knicks, so he didn't really care about that, but it killed his cap. That was a mistake. Anthony was a mistake. His antics were a mistake. The cryptic messages and the fact he was aloof, never was available for the media was a mistake. Going through Charlie Rosen, his little buddy there, and, getting all the information out of him was a mistake. Listen, it was a dark cloud. I don't think it's been lifted, Rich, and you're right. It is a little sad. He's an ex-Knick. People don't realize that. He wasn't a great Knick, but he was an important Knick back in those great Holtzman teams.
No doubt.
And it's a big blow for the Knicks today. But I think overall, most people are happy in New York.
Before I let you go to High Heat, asking the poll question at Rich Eisen Show app. Brockman, go for it.
Yeah, Mad Dog. What's the worst contract in New York sports history? Phil Jackson's deal, Bobby Bonilla, Allen Houston, A-Rod, Darrelle Revis.
Wow. Not Revis. The Jackson contract does not involve a cap. So I wouldn't say him, and Dolan's got plenty of money. So it doesn't hurt the team because it doesn't involve their salary cap. So that would leave you A-Rod.
Allen Houston, who's finally no longer, and Bobby Bo is still getting paid, I think, through 2025.
Yeah, I'll say Bonilla. I know it's not a ton of money, but A-Rod, they won a championship in 2009. He helped them do it, so you got to keep that in mind. Houston helped them get to a final, made a big shot against Miami. There was a little upside with Houston. He's a good guy. I got a ton of money, but he's a good guy. Definitely Bonilla. Bonilla did nothing for the Mets. He was a mess. At the time, that contract, it hurt them a lot. As you said, the $1 million a year he gets every July. So I'll say Bonilla. It's a good question, though. It's a good poll question.
All right. Thank you, Christopher. I appreciate it. We'll chat before your 30 for 30, which I'm looking forward
July
to.
13th. Looking forward to it.
You got it. Thanks, Chris. That's Christopher Mad Dog Russo.
The Rich Eisen Show. Weekdays at noon Eastern on radio stations across the country and audience.
If you like that video, be sure to download our app, and I'll be sure to move Week 6 games to Saturday for that wedding you have to go to.